this and not sit and try to pick each other apart.
Right.
And so it's fairly remarkable, the number of volunteers that they've trained that they now have worldwide. We used to, we've had a lot of nurses and a couple of anesthesiologists from Lynchburg that have volunteered and gone on many trips.
Didn't know that.
And 2 of them work in the recovery room over at Virginia Baptist. And we used to laugh early on, and we said, you know, Bill McGee must think that he's going to, you know, fix every cleft lip in the world. I think he's under this delusion that before he dies, he's going to have fixed every cleft lip in the world. Well, we're pretty close. You know, where Operation Smile goes, you not only train doctors how to do the procedure, nurses how to take care of the children, there's a whole cadre of people that train people how do you raise the money.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because what they'll set up is to say, we're coming to your country first time this year, and we're going to bring everything you need. All you need to supply us with is children and a couple operating rooms. And over the period of the next 3 years, you're going to say, at the end of 3 years, you're going to pay for half of this trip. We will pay for half the supplies, you're going to pay for half the supplies. And at the end of 7 years, you're going to be self-sufficient. And so it's, you know, the purpose is Operation Smile is going to make itself obsolete, and the country
It's going to take it
instead of Operation Smile International, it's Operation Smile Kenya, Operation Smile Manila, Operation
That's
Smile.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's passing on information that
Absolutely.
these people can use
Yeah.
for the rest of their lives. Do you do anything else besides cleft palates and cleft lips? Any other?
We used to do a fair amount of burn reconstruction, burn contractures, burn scars, non-healing burn wounds. Bill McGee's brother is an orthopedic surgeon, and he used to go on a lot of trips, and they did a lot of club feet. Not so much anymore. And part of it has to do with the physical therapy that's really necessary afterward to maintain the healing. You can fix a cleft lip, and once it's fixed, it's fixed. Same thing with a palate. Speech therapy would be nice and is necessary in this country. It's a luxury in the third world, and most children don't get it. But the intensive physical therapy for keeping a contracted arm or leg from a burn from recontracting
I'm sure.
is very difficult. And we found that, you know, you fixed a lot of burns and you felt good about it, and you came back next year and you're looking and saying, wait a minute, this is the same child we did last year, and he looks just like we did last year. So we don't do nearly as much of that as we used to do. It really concentrated on cleft lip and cleft palate.
Before we get any farther along, for those people who are watching us tonight and are not really aware of the severity that you see in cleft lip and cleft palate deformities, you brought some pictures, and I'm going to ask you, Phil is going to put them up on the screen for us, and if you'll just describe each one of these pictures as we go along, I think it'll help explain to the audience what we're doing here.
This is a child with what's called a unilateral cleft lip, and that is the deformity is one where normally our nose is moving from our forehead towards 2 pillars of our lip that come together when we're in utero before birth. And something happens where this just stops, either on one side or the other. And on this one, on the left side of that child's face, the lip didn't get together to meet just beneath the nostril. So that's a cleft lip. And in this country, you just don't really see that deformity at this age. That child, even though he looks like he's about 2, is about 4.
Most of these deformities in this country are taken care of at birth or
shortly thereafter.
Shortly after.
The cleft lip we fix when they're about 2 months of age.
Right.
And we can show the next one. This is a bilateral cleft lip, and the cleft is on each side. And what's jutting out front is what usually comes down as the nose migrates down from between our eyes to come to meet the 2 elements on either side and form a complete lip. And without anything to restrict it, that premaxilla, or that area that's jutting out, just pokes out. Let's go to the next slide. And this is a teenager with an unrepaired lip. And as you can see, this person would be an outcast. And in this country, as a 17-year-old, to try to complete education, get a job, or get married is just unthinkable.
Impossible.
and this is something that Bill McGee ran into time after time after time when he first went to the Philippines to say, how do these kids cope with this? And this is a cleft palate, which is different from the lip. And you can have a cleft lip and a cleft palate. You can have just a cleft lip, and you can have just a cleft palate. But what you're looking at is in the roof of his mouth, instead of having a complete closed roof, you're looking up into his nasal passage back there.
I don't understand how a child can get this old with that kind of deformity and manage to nourish himself.
Well, it's you adapt and you figure it out if your parents are willing to put up with, the problems associated. The biggest deformity with that, besides food or drink going up in your nose, is speech. They're basically unintelligible because air escapes through their nose and they can't control it. And so they have a very nasal speech that when you're listening to them, you go, I can't understand a word you're saying.
I can imagine.
Yeah. Next slide. And this is a volunteer, actually one of the anesthesiologists on one of their trips. This was actually in Nicaragua. And she's holding that child and has a mask and is putting the child to sleep. And the volunteers on this are just the most unbelievable people that just give and give and give and give. And it's just, there's nothing quite like it in the world. And anybody that's volunteered their time, that's worked for Habitat for Humanity or anything, that says, I expect nothing from this, I just want to go help somebody. And particularly in this case where the parents realize what you've done for them. To say, I know people that have cleft lip and cleft palate, and I know what they've gone through, and I know what you've done for my child. And they're so appreciative. Here it's expected. It's going to happen.
Right.
There, save for you, it's not going to happen.
So working with the parents is
a big part of this,
yeah.
Next slide.
And a positive experience in working with them.
And you can't help but fall in love with these little kids. I mean, they're all just these wonderful little kids. And every one of them, you say, well, is there any story that sticks out? You said every child that you see has this unbelievable story of how much time they spent to get there and what sacrifice the parents have made to get them here, to entrust their child to say, you're a total stranger from some land far off that I have no idea what you're going to do, but here's my child. Can you fix it? Next slide. And here's a cleft lip, a cleft palate getting ready to get fixed. And the next slide. And there it is repaired. And it's painful.
Has to be.
It's painful. But these kids recover very quickly, particularly the younger children. Next slide. And here's that child that we looked at. He's a teenager with a cleft lip, bilateral cleft lip. Before, and then the next slide, immediately after his repair, before he goes back to the recovery ward. And that's another amazing thing. The children that are old enough, the children that are 4 and beyond, they get these little packages and they have dolls and things to entertain them before they get operated on, because everybody comes and they're there a week or 4 or 5 days beforehand, and then if you're being operated on Friday, you're going to spend a good 9 days there waiting for your surgery. One of the things that comes in this pack is a mirror.
Oh,
and to see these children afterwards spend hours looking at themselves in these little mirrors is it's just worth it. You just look and it's like, I don't even know who they're looking, and you can see, I don't know who that is. And it's just truly amazing.
One of the things that Dr. Andrews pointed out was that these children are laughing and happy when they come to the operating room.
Right.
And so trusting because they know that they're going to be different afterward.
Right. Interestingly enough, one of the first times I was there, if you were over the age of 8 in the Philippines, your lip was repaired under local.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Which, as an adult would be a daunting task. And I love operating on children, and when I go to the emergency room to sew up a child, if he's 2 or beyond, I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with him for about 10 or 15 minutes before we ever touch anything. and explain to him everything I'm going to do and his role in this, which is basically to hold still for me.
Right.
But explain there are going to be parts that are going to hurt and blah, blah, blah.